What's good, you guys? Today we're talking about a New Balance model that I've honestly been waiting around a while to get. I haven't really seen any colorways that I felt like I needed to have, and plus with it coming in at that lower price point, I thought that that might imply lesser quality or comfort. But when I saw this colorway, I finally decided to pull the trigger, and honestly these surprised me a lot in hand. And if you're interested in getting this model specifically, I think this colorway is a great place to start because you're getting a lot of elevated materials on these. But we're just going to get right into it because today we're talking about the collaboration with the Whitaker Group on the New Balance 740 Willful Bias. Starting off with the packaging, they kept it pretty simple. This whole box comes in this off-white color, and then you get this removable lid, and then you have the New Balance Willful Bias for betterment on the top there. Now, literally up until buying these, I had always heard the slogan was Willful Bias for discovery, but I guess going off of that, they changed that. The other branding you get is right here in the corner, and then also on the inside of the lid here, but otherwise it's pretty minimal, and then the tissue paper is just a standard cardboard color. And for anybody who wants specifics on the size tag information, I'll throw that up right here so you can take a look at that. Getting into the shoes, the first thing you notice as far as elevated materials is the type of mesh that they decided to go with. This is like a super intricate woven diamond mesh that I've not actually seen anywhere else before, and was also a big point for me to buy them. In addition to that, you get suede hits that come up on the medial side of the toe box and go into the eye stay area and around the base of the lacing system also. And then the synthetic overlay on the toe cap is white with black trim, and then you have some of these motion lines going through it on the lateral and medial side. The ones on the medial side, I actually thought that was a scuff until I looked at both shoes. It kind of fades, but then it almost looks like you just have a little bit of a nick right there on your shoe. And below that, on both sides, you have exposed areas that show that mesh again, and you can probably tell from the B-roll that this is not a pure white mesh. It definitely has a yellow tinge to it that kind of gives it a more vintage feel, but as we go through the shoe, I feel like it fits the aesthetic of everything else very well. On the lateral side, you get more of those overlays with the black outline, but now this one that comes through the N logo that's in copper and black is actually a more taupe color that kind of matches the box, so it's not pure white like the panel you see on the front. And then you have the big sweeping copper panel underneath that with the 740 branding towards the heel corner. And this little TPU underlayment under that is basically like oxidized looking, almost like a Jordan outsole would get. And then right inside of that, you have a different kind of mesh in black that has a very different design to it than what you see on the white portions. On the back of the heel, you can see that sort of oxidizing color to that panel in the center. You have the New Balance branding above that, and then right below that, you see that different kind of mesh again. I think at this angle, it might be a little bit more clear to see that variation. The medial side mimics the lateral side, and then towards the back heel you get a little bit more of this aggressive lining in the midsole. Now, talking to the midsole specifically, this is actually really soft in hand, and it's also a different shade of like an off-white, but it blends with all the different tones that you get as you go throughout the shoe. And then on the lateral side in black and copper, you have the Absorb branding, and then you can start to see that midfoot shank coming up there in black. On the lacing system, you get all these hits of suede, and then you have these striped loopholes that come through, two on each side that match to the one in the center panel, which is where again you get the 740 branding, and above that you get WB, which I'm thinking since you don't really get Whitaker Group branding on here anywhere, and normally that would just say NB for New Balance, that maybe WB is Whitaker Balance. The tongue itself comes in that same antique mesh with that sort of vintage yellowing to it, and then you get these pure white oval laces. Okay, so now here is my thing with these laces. Number one, the bow on there, way too stiff, not a fan of that. Number two, I feel like this needs a little bit more color to draw in all these black accents. So since I had these laying around and I am such a fan of trail laces, I popped these black laces in here. And I mean, I'm going to show you here and try to get some B-roll as well, but side by side, I really think that the black lace is going to be far superior to this white one, and I just think this look brings the whole shoe together much better, and you get that way better drape on the laces as opposed to this. On the back of the tongue, you get this patch with gold embroidered writing that does say Willful Bias for discovery, so even though the box says betterment, I guess they are staying with that original name scheme. The material on the back of the tongue comes in a really light copper color, and then the sock liner comes in black. This is a very minimally padded ankle area. On foot, they are pretty comfortable, but there isn't very much in the way of heel cushioning. This is pretty minimal. The insoles you get in here are pretty standard. They come in copper with that off yellow, but they do have that classic Willful Bias graphic with Blind Justice peeking out from under her blindfold, a direct reference for the Willful Bias series in general, as it was named that kind of to amplify the fact that there is discrimination and prejudice for people of color in many facets of society today. Moving to the outsole, that comes in primarily black, and then you get little hits by the forefoot of silver. The midfoot shank area is in like sort of a graphite gray, and then you have the copper New Balance logo. And then here at the back of the heel, you can see this 3-hole area where you can actually see the Absorb foam inside, and honestly pressing on that, being that it's exposed, you can can really feel how soft this is, and that comes into play with these being on feet for sure. Now, as far as sizing and fit recommendations, I bought these in my true size. I'm a wide and flat footer, and honestly I have about a thumb's width from the tip of my toe to the end of the shoe. In my opinion, these fit fine because I don't really mind that extra little bit of room. That's just a personal preference, but if you like a more snug fit, in these specifically, I would say half sizing down is totally safe. Even if I had these in 11.5, I think they would still fit fine. And as far as on foot, I was really surprised by these. Like I said before, coming in at that lower price point, I was sort of expecting to not really be impressed with the amount of comfort that they offer, but that was not the case at all. These things are super comfortable right out of the box. They don't need to be broken in or anything like that. They're good to go, and it really does have a lot of good squish to it, which I prefer over firmer shoes. You get a nice bit of responsive bounce back to it as well, and overall the shoe is extremely light. Plus, with the swap out on these laces, I feel like it brings that whole colorway together and just gives the shoe a little bit more depth that it was kind of missing when you just leave it with those white laces. And the elevated materials with the suede and the different type of mesh make this feel a little bit more premium than maybe some of the GRs would that might feel a little bit more cheap in hand. And even with that minimal heel cushioning, it's really not something that you notice when they're on foot. I think anybody who picks up a pair of these is going to be satisfied with the comfort and the fit. So at this point, most people already know the name James Whitner, especially for the collaborations with Jordan and Imam Nier, but Imam Nier is just one of the many companies under his umbrella of the Whitaker Group. If you actually go to the Whitaker Group's website and you scroll down a little bit, you can actually see all the different things that he has in his portfolio, from the retail side with Social Status, Imam Nier, APB, and Jade, to a bunch of different other branded programs that include like restaurants and hotels and even like community outreach programs. If you guys want to check that out, it's definitely really interesting to see all the different types of things that he's doing. But keeping it on the sneak tip, some of the other collaborations that he's done with New Balance was this missing pieces pack here, where you had these two different colorways. Below you can see a quote from the Whitaker Group of what those colorways and that launch was supposed to represent. And of course, with the Willful Bias series specifically, you had the two pairs of the 1906 U's. That was the OG release that was kind of referencing the biases in the justice system. And then secondly, you had the Willful Bias for Education pack that has the 990 V4 and the 998 that both come in these sort of mint colors. And that pack had sort of a theme for outside of the school lessons learned in life with this unwritten curriculum idea. And then there's the most recent of the Willful Bias series with this 740 that we're talking about. And then the last shoe that's specifically branded a Whitaker Group collab is on this Nike Waffle 1 SE that was nicknamed the Bill, just to reference Bill Bowerman's original creation of the first Nikes with the waffle iron. And every aesthetic point to this colorway has been super aged to kind of give that whole kind of homage antique vibe. And these were limited to 500 pairs, but these are super sick. Now, I'm sure a lot of people have already heard of the store Social Status, but when I actually started digging into all the collabs that they've done, there is a huge list. I mean, there's a lot of heat in here, so I just decided to cherry pick a couple of them and talk about them briefly. The first one that caught my eye is this Diadora collab on the N9000 for the Rio Olympic medals pack. These are both insane. I really like that gold and red pair, but the blue and silver pair is sick as well. Then there's the collab on the Asics Gel-Lyte 5 with both Social Status and Charlotte Lab schools. These schools are a little bit more of an experimental kind of education that offers more hands-on learning, and it's cool because it's from the same city where he started all of this, which is in Charlotte. The next is this Renaissance collab on the Adidas 4D Ultra. That color palette is just sick, and I've always liked that 4D midsole. I've never actually gotten a pair, but those are dope. Then you have the New Balance 1600 collab titled The Winter at the Hamptons, and I'm just a sucker for a classic old style New Balance, and I feel like that colorway is just really fitting to an older era of New Balances that I remember. Then lastly, for my own personal picks, is this collab on the Reebok Instapump Fury OG called the Hornet's Nest, which is another nod to Charlotte, North Carolina. That is such a dope colorway, and I know people don't really rock with Reeboks that much, but I've had a few of the Instapump Furies in the past, and it's a super comfortable shoe. Then of course you have all the heavy hitters from the Imam Nier collabs that everybody knows with the Jordan Retros and things like this. And those 95s, I went on to Imam Nier's website, and these two colorways are sitting in all those sizes that are highlighted in green. You can get those for retail right now. I'm telling you guys, don't sleep on that, because I feel like those 95s in like 5 to 10 years time are going to be super high priced, and I feel like getting them for a steal right now is just crazy. But the two that caught my eye from the Imam Nier catalog of collabs was not actually any of those Jordans. It was both of those Diadoras again on the N9000 with that brown sugar colorway and that peach colorway. Both of those look super dope, and that lighter peach color almost reminds me of like a Hender scheme, but either way the materials on both of those look super premium, and I feel like a lot of people sleep on Diadora, Pandora, but I really like some of the stuff they've done. Now there's a lot more to all of the projects that he's working on, so much that I really couldn't get into it all. It was just gonna take too long. But if you guys are interested in more of that information, I recommend that you go on YouTube to the Complex channel and you watch this interview that he did on this show called Please Explain. It's about an hour long, but it really gives you a better sense of him as a brand owner and where he's coming from and what it is that he's trying to do with all these different ventures that he has under his umbrella. But that's gonna wrap up my review on the New Balance 740 Willful Bias collab. If you guys wouldn't mind liking, commenting, or subscribing, all that stuff goes a really long way. I'm trying to build the channel and just bring you different content that you're not gonna get anywhere else. But I'm gonna get out of here, so thanks for watching, and remember, life's short, so buy the shoes.